Welcome to the Dean Blechman Show, live from Long Island. Free-flowing talk with a charismatic, down-to-earth host. Join Dean as he interviews and chats freely with his guests, ranging from superstar athletes to politicians, industry titans, and everyday folk with fascinating life stories. Dean educates, entertains, and most of all, touches people's lives. You're listening to the Dean Blechman Show, live from Long Island.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dean Blechman Show. February 16th, sunny, little chilly here on the east end of Long Island, but a nice winter day. Nothing better than right here in my studio, my dear friend, Rabbi Mendy Goldberg from Chabad, from the East End. How are you today, Rabbi Mendy?
Thank God. Great to be here today and nice to be back.
Terrific. We go across the Atlantic right now, all the way to senior correspondent, the lovely Ria Bo. Ria, good afternoon for you.
Hi, Dean. Hi, Rabbi Mendy. Hi, lovely listeners. Thanks for joining us. You've joined us on the topic show. I don't know if I call it a hot topic, but I think it could get interesting. And the question being raised today, or trying to be answered, and I didn't find this easy, is who can name 3 things that would make the world a better place? So it's kind of easy. You could do the obvious. World peace, end world hunger and thirst, spread more love. But that's questionable as to whether that actually has much of an impact. So you've got to put those aside. So if you're listening to this now, try and think of 3 things, or if not one, that would just make the world a better place. So that is what we're going to try and tackle today. And I've got to say, I didn't find it that easy, but I got there in the end. But until we get to that point, back to you, Dean.
Ria, thank you very much. When you say this topic, who can name the 3 things to make the world a better place? My 3 things are really interconnected, and I'm sure my dear friend here, Rabbi Mendy Goldberg, could agree, disagree, or even add to it. But obviously, my 3 things are interact with a culture that's different from one's own, be a better listener, and always remain solution focused. Solution focused, not working really in a crisis mode. But I'm going to reach over now to Rabbi Mendy Goldberg and ask him what's his 3 and how he feels about my 3.
So what I'm going to say is I'm going to take a totally different angle at this and look at it from a different picture. Because many times when we ask the question, what can we do to make this world a better place? What are the 3 things? We always think in global, widespread, as you mentioned before, love, world peace, and all the wonderful things that are usually not in the reach of the individual to do. What we need to do is more focus on the individual, because every single person is a whole world on their own. And I think if we all take care of our own little world, this entire world will be a better place. And and it's interesting that you used the word 3 things, because I believe also everything is in 3s. It's 3-pronged.
Wow, really?
Almost everything you'll find in this world, take it from any angle, you'll see it's 3-pronged. And I think, and I was thinking about this, of how I can put it, and I like to put just 3 words to it. And those 3 words are probably universal regardless for any human being, wherever they are in the world. If they take these 3 things seriously, they can make an impact on themselves and the world and world over. And I would put them in simple language.
So what you're going to say right now applies to selves and to a difference in the world.
Correct.
Okay.
That means if we were to work on ourselves in these 3 areas, we can make an impact on ourselves and on the people and the world around us at large. Number 1 is responsibility. Number 2, humility. And number 3, spirituality. You can put it in any order you like, in any shape or form you want to translate, but I think those are the 3 keys to creating a harmonious, beautiful, prosperous world. And the reason when I talk about those 3, and I'll just elaborate just for one moment before I give it back to you, Dean, is they have in it three things. I believe that for one to be able to be successful in making this world a better place, and that are needed for the world is a better relationship between man and God. It doesn't make a difference if you're Jewish or not. We need to have a spiritual component within ourselves. Look at ourselves beyond the materialism. Number two, a sense of humility. And I'm going backwards of what I mentioned before. Humility, one of the crucial problems that we have in this world is the narcissism and the egotism that exists within ourselves, the selfishness. When we have a little bit of humility, we then become better listeners, better givers, better understanders, better spouses, better friends, because we have a sense of humility. And most importantly, responsibility. We have to realize that we are not just here living on a lonely island. We have a responsibility to the people around us, to ourselves. So when I look at it, if I were to have to split it into three ideas, it would be between man and God, between man and himself, and between man and his fellow.
Wow. Before you go into more, Rabbi Mendy, let's go over to the UK. Let's go over to senior correspondent Ria Bowe. We've got to hear from Ria what her three are.
Okay, I wasn't expecting. I thought we was going to do one at a time, but hey, that's fine.
Ria, we could do whatever you want to do, Ria.
No, it's fine. There's a lot on the table already, isn't there, to have just passed an opinion on. So before I go on to mine, I wanted to have a look at the rabbis there. God, just sounds brilliant to me. I mean, if people could do those things, and it is, I guess I would close caption the word if, to make the world a better place. And like you, Rabbi, I started from sort of within a person, in fact, within somebody's mind, rather than your kind of holistic approach. I love the holistic approach, but that's not where I found myself. In terms of humility, Rabbi, if people aren't quite sure on what that is, could you briefly just break that down so they could get on that path to humility?
So humility would be, number one, as I think Dean put it, number one, a listener. Don't think you know it all. We have all to learn from somebody. There's any person we meet, anything we encounter, we can learn something from it. We have to think of ourselves as a cup that's not full, that can always be learning and experiencing and gaining knowledge, experience, wisdom from whatever we encounter. And just to add to that, I mean, going back on what you said, it's not the question of if. I think the three things that I've placed to a certain extent, and we don't have to go to 100%, if any person would just apply 20%, we'll be doing much better in this world.
Ria?
Yep, sounds good to me. I couldn't agree more. So, okay, I've soaked up the rabbis there. I guess we could break it down. I guess I was going for the application for rather than creating a sense of doubt. I didn't intend to create doubt. It was more if someone isn't sure how to apply it. I know it may seem easy, but maybe for some not. I don't know. But it was the application of really, Rabbi. What do you got going on there, Dean? Could you break down yours a little bit?
No, but as far as breaking it down, one application that I've always applied throughout my life, and maybe that maybe has to do with my characteristic of how I get along with people and can connect with people, and why for 3 decades I was in sales and interacting with customers and with people, because I've always felt my second one that I said that can make the world a better place. As Rabbi Mendy did say, people have to become better listeners and be open and listen, because it's very important what you're going to learn. And I've always had that type of attitude, even from a business standpoint, Rabbi and Ria, that I always had an open ear and an open door to people to at least hear what they have to say. I might disagree, but at least hear and listen. I don't know if you want to, I'm going to throw it back at you, Rabbi.
I think it's an important, especially in today's environment that we're living in, where people are so divided and animosity is so prejudices and racism, as much as we can deny it and as much as we try to bury it, unfortunately, there's a certain prejudice that people have towards anybody. You see a person wearing any type of garment. If you see them wearing ripped garments, you imagine that they're poor. If they're driving a beautiful car, you imagine that they're rich. You imagine that their advice all of a sudden means more to you. The prejudices that exist in this world are beyond the scope of just one show, but the concept is that we don't take people for what they have to offer. We take them for what we seem that they are. And I think when we talk about humility, we talk about listening, it's all part of one of the biggest problems that we have in this world is the prejudice that exists against any type of person. And we don't assume that we can learn something from them if they look or they act or if they do or they drive a certain type of car, whatever it may be. So to dispel the notion, and I think this has a great application, it's not just theoretical or casting doubt. The application is that when we approach another person, whether it's in the street, in the store, or whether it's a person that lives within our own home, our spouse or our family, what do we do and how do we approach them? How do we listen to them? How do we apply what they tell us? Do they really make a difference in our life?
You, Rabbi Mendy, you basically what you were elaborating on is somewhat a little bit stereotypes that are out there, correct?
True, to a certain extent, yes, but that's part of the phobias that are created in this, in an environment because of it.
I see different questions that could be answered that have to do with what you're saying. Some of them are, like how did your parents feel about different, let's say, ethnic or racial or religious groups? I see what did your parents, what did one's parents over the years communicate to their children, their actions and their words. Parents, were your parents friends with people, from different groups? What did children learn in school about a particular group? Was there a lack of information about some people? I see, are there some people you shy away from? People shy away from. I mean, people should ask questions about different cultures, about different customs, and be more open-minded, open the door to different views. So, Rhea, I want to throw it back over to you.
God, I'm just listening contently to what's going on, really, to encapsulate it. I think anybody would find it hard to disagree with any of those things if you can pull it off and become that rounded, balanced person. I couldn't agree more, guys. I think the world would be a better place, Dean.
Yeah, well, in general, people, for the most part, want to be asked questions. I think people want to be asked questions about their lives and their different culture.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when people live in quite an isolated community and they're used to seeing what they see, hear what they hear, it creates this pretty tight comfort zone that's not often trodden outside of. And when people go outside their comfort zone, they're often not at their best unless they're familiar with doing that. So it all adds up to me, guys. If people could apply what's being said, I'd love to meet someone who felt that they could apply what's being said and they saw the positive impact that it made, Dean.
Rhea and Rabbi Mendy, I find in general when I'm dealing with people that people are usually very pleasantly surprised when I show interest in their cultures. If one is extremely sincere and you can listen, be a good listener, people will open up and they'll be shocked and they'll tell you a lot.
I've seen the application.
Do you agree with me, Rabbi Mendy?
In fact, Rhea, I see it a lot because people, especially for the way I dress, and where people think that, because you have a black hat, wear a beard, look like a rabbi, you have no clue to another religion, or you look down on somebody maybe differently, or you don't have an understanding to somebody who's not of the Jewish faith or something like that. And what I have found is over the time, to the contrary, that once people begin speaking to you, they sometimes feel more comfortable talking to you. when they can strip away that prejudice, when they realize you are a person who's sincerely interested in how they're doing, how you can make them be a better person, how they can feel, and find out about their cultures, their religion, their background, where they come from, what they do. And it's a question of sincerity. Yes, of course, most of this world is a lot of garbage and a lot of, facades and things that are going on. And therefore, it's so foreign to some people you really want to know about my culture? You're not making a TV show about this, so you really sincerely want to know where I come from. And when they see there's a certain sense of sincerity, and the most beautiful thing to see it, because the ones that are truly sincere is children. When children ask a question to somebody or something which is foreign to them, and they ask it with that sincerity, and you see the response, and you see the person's eyes light up, you really care about where I come from. There's a certain sense of relationship that because we all have a common thread, we're all human beings interested in the same thing, making this world a better place, there's something we all can share from each other. Why don't we move on to another one of the topics?
Absolutely. Go ahead. You could start.
Oh, okay. So one of them, which is a little more, I would say, not controversial, maybe more difficult, and you want to call it holistic, is spirituality. And why I find spirituality a necessary, pragmatic approach into making this world a better place. And for that reason is because most of the things that we find in most people, regardless of religion, race, creed, whatever they may be, one of the things that people are lacking is substance in life. And because they lack substance, quality, happiness, fulfillment, they look for other means to fulfill it. Some people will go to alcohol, some people to drugs, some people to killing, some people to stealing. Different things occur to people because they lack a sense of spirituality. They lack a sense of fulfillment. What is found by people of any type of religion who have a certain sense of moral focus, if you want to call it spirituality, you want to call it morality, you want to call it whatever it is, but something higher than just themselves, it gives you an alignment. It gives you a line to say this is correct, this is incorrect, this is what we follow, this is a moral caliber that I should reach, this is something, a focus that I can work on. It's not just to achieve another car, another home, another yacht, another extra $100, whatever it may be. There's something greater beyond the surface. And you will find, and they actually did a survey about this, and this is an unbelievable thing. They did a survey that they asked people on their deathbed, what are the things they most regret in life? Nobody wrote on their deathbed that they could have made another $100, another $1 million.
So nobody tied economics, financial,
or looked at success in life as the economics that they've achieved.
Okay,
and this is something which is very interesting because, contrary to what we teach our kids, or what common thought is, that success means having the best job, driving the best car, having the beautiful home, success means being happy. And what they found in happiness meant, either for some people it was that they got along with their family, for some people it was that they found happiness with fulfillment within their life from a spiritual way. But all of the people on their deathbed, if you wanted to look what their biggest regrets were, that they didn't spend enough me time, that they didn't focus more on becoming a better person. And because of that, being a better person for their family, a better person for the environment, a better person for the world. It wasn't about how come they didn't spend another few hours at work, why they weren't, or it was more, why didn't they spend more time with their family, and so on.
Boy, all our listeners listening to this, that was, I'm listening attentively to you. Very, very powerful, Rabbi Mendy, and very, very moving.
It's because it's against the grain. And the normal tendency of human being, which is a very healthy tendency, is to achieve. We all want to be achievers. Nobody wants to be losers. And in order to be achievers, we feel that achievement means that if I can be able to live comfortably, now there's nothing wrong with having an extra few $1 million in your account, but that shouldn't be the means to an end. That shouldn't be the ends of the means. That should be a means to be able to reach a greater goal, so that you should be able to spend time and have that time to be able to focus on greater things than just the materialistic.
And that is suffering in society is a big part of that, because everybody's lives are just extremely busy.
And not only that, look at the people today. We have addictions, drug addictions, alcohol addictions are on the rise in a tremendous way. How many people today are addicted to some sort of type of addiction because since they are not finding it in the regular day-to-day place? It's not because drugs are more readily available. It's not because alcohol is more readily available. It's because there's a certain lack of fulfillment that people feel in their lives. In the 60s, it was Woodstock that fulfilled it, the hippies, the Mooney movement, and everything else that was the time. And today's day and age, unfortunately, it's drugs. And how many young children have lost their lives, especially right here on Long Island, where the heroin epidemic is so high? I've seen it. It's that there's a lack of fulfillment when we teach children in school. Success means getting a better grade. So that what? So that you should be able to have a better college degree. So that what? So that I should be able to get a better position in a hospital or a lawyer, and I should be able to put in 100 hours a week. And therefore what? What do I have from it?
Right.
And then they come out of school with what kind of fulfillment? That they've worked all these hours, put in all these and got their A's, got their best marks on the SATs, whatever it may be. And what are they walking out with? Without any real fulfillment in life. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they turn to other substances to be able to create that fulfillment.
Ria, very well said. Ria, I don't know if this is happening in the UK, throughout Europe, and all our listeners around the world that are listening attentively to this show. But here on Long Island, especially in the New York area, heroin has become the last few years extremely prevalent here throughout youth and in the school systems.
Probably an epidemic.
It's an epidemic. I don't know if that's happening out your way, Ria. If you want to comment.
Oh God, yeah, it's worldwide, guys. I mean, that kind of organized crime that goes behind that. We've lost the war on drugs. And it doesn't look as though there's going to be any changes. So, yeah, it's rife. For sure it's rife. I don't think it's necessarily heroin. I mean, I'm not that in tune with this kind of thing, but I do know it's rife. And it is rife worldwide. I mean, look what President Duterte is doing in the Philippines to try and take drastic measures to try and cull the problem of drugs. And we've lost the war on drugs, haven't we? That's the story. And it's going nowhere fast. It's going the wrong way at 1 million miles an hour, and no one's found a solution. And maybe what Rabbi Mendy is saying, this simple application within a school to show people another way to bring some kind of fulfillment to their lives may have an impact. So again, I'm looking at the application to see if it could be applied within the school curriculum. So maybe a bit of lobbying and explaining it, Rabbi, might help.
Rabbi, You want to comment on what Ria just said?
I think, yes, it's not necessarily heroin, you're correct. And I think the problem of drugs is a worldwide problem. It's not only the underpinnings of it, the mafia, whatever it may be, that it's import, export, and the amount of people that are gaining tremendously from a financial perspective. And therefore, it's prevalent and it's unfortunate, and I think it comes into every single community regardless of how sheltered people may think they are. It's a problem all over, and it doesn't make a difference if they're rich or poor. Everybody's affected by it, and as you said, we're losing the war against it. One of the reasons why I believe we're losing the war against it is because of the problem we have with our education system. Not only our education system, but our mindset, our media, any type of method. Or if you walk over to the average person, 99% of people, if you ask them what a successful person means, is a person that drives a Lamborghini and owns a yacht and has their own private plane. That's considered success. Unfortunately, who are the role models today of today's children? Almost all the movie stars and the people in Hollywood. I shouldn't say most, but many of the people in Hollywood are the biggest problems of drugs.
Wow.
Are addicted to have addictions and go to shrinks. The only difference is that they have the money to be able to pay for expensive rehabs to get them back onto their sets and to their jobs, while the teenager or the young kid doesn't, or their average family doesn't, and therefore, unfortunately, succumb to it. And we see it over here, as Dee mentioned, it's an epidemic. And the reason is, as many rehabs you're going to send somebody to, if you're not going to replace it with something of a greater fulfillment, and this is something very obvious that even in the 12 steps for addicts for alcohol, one of them is, I think it's a 6th step or something of that nature, is to attach with a superior quality, a superiority, connect yourself to something greater than yourself. Because as long as we're going to focus on the selfish individual, as long as we're going to focus on feeding the materialism, and success means having more and more of I, we are going to only drain ourselves from realizing the true potential that our youth and ourselves can achieve in this world. And drugs is causing us to just focus on the I, because what happens with drugs? They get a high. They feel good about themselves. But even though it's going to destroy their life, they don't matter, because right now I feel good. Ask any person while they're taking the drugs. They feel good, so they don't care about anything else. And that's what we've trained our society. It's not only in America, but the world over. Society as a whole, and until we had changed that mindset, society in a whole is, as long as I feel good, I can say it, I can do it, I can be it. Communism was what stopped me from feeling good. Fascism was what decided who should be good. Socialism said we should all be good, but it was all about the I. It's a concept over here is that we have to think about beyond the I, beyond what right now you feel good, beyond the greater picture. What does that mean to you feeling good? Where will you find some fulfillment just because today you earned another $1 million, you got a nice car, you bought a yacht, and therefore you can see many of the wealthiest people are still, why do they go to all these different ashrams and all these different gurus all over the places? Because as much money as they have, they're still looking for fulfillment in life. Some of them find it within Judaism, some of them find it within Christianity, some of them find it in Catholicism, some find it in Buddhism, but they're all looking, every person, look at the Scientology, why did it become such a great cult or whatever you want to call it, depending on who you talk to. It's because it gives people some sense of fulfillment, whether it's real or false, is to be debated. But at the end of the day, the average person today, child, adult, senior, whoever it may be, successful or not successful, is looking for fulfillment in life. And unfortunately, these substances of alcohol, drugs, and whatever give them that temporary fulfillment, that temporary high, and to become addicted to it.
Hey, listen, you keep talking about the financial and applying financial to all this. There's no question about it. I even hear it from my 90-year-old mom still today. Mm-hmm. She sometimes says, Dean, you know what's most of the happiest times in my life were when I was poor. She says to me all the time.
I don't think everybody I think everybody should have enough money and everything that they should be able to spend. But the question is, you know, one of the beautiful things you talk about, I said before, responsibility was a third thing. And I think, you know, one of the reasons why I picked these three characters, even though some of them are more theoretical than practical, is because I think they're interconnected and intertwined. The three things are all come together. That when you have a spiritual fulfillment, when you have a sense of humility, you are responsible not only for yourself, but for other people around you. There's beauty in having lots of money, that you can help so many people. We talk about God giving us a gift, that what we have, everything in life is a gift. Our health, our money. And when we share that gift that we have, and we realize the responsibility that God gave us with that gift, whether it's our health and therefore we take care of it properly, whether it's our money, so therefore we also manage it accordingly and give it and help the people around us. We then feel so blessed, so successful, that our success, there was once a fellow, he was a very wealthy individual. He wrote a book, it was called From Riches to Rags. He had a lot of money. His name was Mel Landau.
Mel Landau, I remember that. Yeah.
I had a nephew that lived out here in Long Island. He was a very wealthy businessman, and at one point he lost everything. And he drove by one of the schools that he sponsored, that it was his name, it's still today called the Landau Yeshiva. And while he drove by it, he says, you know, this is the only thing that I still have.
Wow.
Because the charity that he gave, the philanthropy, the people that he helped, was the only still thing that he had after he lost his money. And I think that's the most powerful thing, that the things we share with others The time we share with others, the time that you've given to spend time with your family, with your children, that's the best time you ever spent in your life.
Wow.
Not the time, yes, you stayed late in the office to make another few dollars.
Right.
But the hour that you spent with your children will never forget it. And I speak to people all the time. There's a mother that I know that's a successful doctor, and she took off time to be with her children. She said, you know what, I can be a doctor when I'm 50, but I can't be with my children when they're 50.
But Rabbi Mendy, and I want to bring Rhea back into the conversation, but Rabbi Mendy, when you mention that, is it really about quantity, but really more about quality of time?
It's both.
Both.
It's both. Because when you can spend 3 hours with your children, but if you're lying on a couch under a blanket, you're not spending time with them. It's the quality, it's what you make of it. It's how you show the expression of it. You can think about it. You can help a person with $100 and he'll feel forever thankful, or buy the person lunch and you can throw that person a $100 bill while you're walking and they won't even notice it.
Wow.
It's how you give it, it's what you give, and how you feel that responsibility that you have in this world. What does that mean to you? Is it something that you're taking seriously? Is it something that you feel that you're doing your part? Because as I mentioned from the get-go, it's not about, we are all, every single person is an entire universe. You save one person, you saved an entire universe. You destroy one person, you destroy an entire universe.
Wow, powerful.
We are all an entire universe. And when we collectively make our universe beautiful, and that's why, they say there's a joke. There was this guy that was coming out of his coming out of his driveway, and he's speeding out of his driveway. And as he backs out, he backs into a car. His neighbor calls him over and said, "Hey, where are you speeding to? You just banged into my car. You dented my car." He says, "I got no time for you. I'm running to the World Peace Conference."
Oh, wow.
And so, when you're running to the World Peace Conference, but you can't talk to your neighbor, and you're really... That's the oxymoron that we live in this world. Everybody will send money to Africa to help the people that they never met, but their own neighbor next door won't help them shovel the snow. This is the dichotomy that we live in our life.
Wow.
The problems that exist. We have to realize responsibility starts with our own neighbor, with our own home. Like the person that said, "I tried to fix the world. I saw I wasn't able to. I tried to fix my country. I saw I wasn't able to. I tried to fix my state. I saw I wasn't able to. I tried to fix my city. I saw I wasn't able to. I decided to fix my community. I said I wasn't able to. So I decided I'll fix my family. I saw I wasn't able to do that too. I said I'll decide to fix myself."
Wow.
When you fix yourself, it has a ripple effect. As they say, the famous adage, smile, it's contagious. You do good, the person next to you does good. There was once a very famous saying, we as kids, we used to do this thing. Growing up in our community and talk about sheltered communities before Rio and not meeting other people. One of the things that we did as kids in our community was that we went out of our community, out of our comfort zones, and we used to stand on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan or in different other Rockefeller Center. We would go to Hanukkah time and offer people if they needed a menorah, offer people if they wanted to do any Jewish deed that they were able to impress upon them, if anything that they needed. And once the question came was, what's the point? Majority of the people in this world are not Jewish. And majority of people walking down a New York City street even are not Jewish, right? So why would you stand out there in the cold and the hot and ask a person, "Excuse me, sir, are you Jewish? How are you today? Excuse me, sir, what would you like to be helped?" What would be the point in that? And what we found was that if you ask a person, "Excuse me, sir, stranger, how are you today?" They say, "1 second, some strange kid is asking me how are you." It sounds obnoxious. No. They care about it. They want to help me. If I need a menorah, if I need something. What did I do today to help somebody? And that automatically has a ripple effect. I give you the challenge that, or any of our listeners, walk into a store on any given day and the person coming out, greet them, say good morning, good afternoon. Watch the smile that comes across their face. Watch them then go and tell it to the next person good morning. They'll go home and tell their spouse who maybe they haven't spoken to say good morning because they saw that a total stranger cared to tell them good morning. In our busy lives, we forget. It's all about ourselves. Take a moment, the simplest things. And that's why Dean on the Street is so beautiful. It's giving people attention.
I go up to everybody. You talk about, and I want to bring Rhea back into our conversation. But as you're articulating this message, and that you really can't make a difference to the world and make it a better place until you fix yourself. That, you mentioned Dean on the street. I mean, there was a perfect, if you go to the Facebook, my Facebook page of the show, Valentine's Day. It was funny. I walked into a couple of floral stores and walked in, and what do you see? You see, all these men online, and they all had, none of them was smiling. So what did I do? I got, Dean on the street showed up, and I went in and I shook everybody's hand and said, "Are you ready to, say why you're here online and be involved?" When I left, they couldn't thank me enough. They loved participating. I made them laugh. I listened to them. It was really engaging, and it's just a wonderful experience. I want to go back over to the UK. I want to bring Ria back into this. Ria, you're hearing a lot between Rabbi Mendy and Dean, and if there's anything more that you want to share on responsibility, humility, and spirituality that the rabbi has commented on.
I think it promotes an environment to listen more than debate when I listen to Rabbi Mendy. So I kind of go into this listening mode more than a debate kind of mode, and you're just taking it on board as it comes over me kind of thing. So again, I find myself in that situation where it's more listening than debating. So I'd say for me, everything I've heard is so relevant. It really, really is. And the application of it to actually make a positive difference is the only thing I can really add to it, really, is getting it applicable so a positive impact actually happens. It actually occurs rather than it might occur. But other than that, Dean, that's about it.
Very good, Ria. Rabbi Mendy, Ria Bo and I, once again, she being from the UK, two different cultures. My number one that I had mentioned was interact with a culture different from one's own. So my show has been... I think
the very fact that we're sitting here together, there's all three of us are from two different cultures, never met each other before. And here you have a venue where puts people together from all different aspects of life. And like you mentioned before, you go over to a total stranger and you ask them their opinion, and look how their life, look how their eyes shine. That's what I think is a beautiful thing about today's day and age.
Yeah, as Rhea and I met, it was a year ago, April, and as time went on, I began to realize that even though we're all the same, just the fact of she growing up and living there in Europe, and me, this guy she got to know that could be crazy at times, and that New York and here Jewish from here in New York, it's been just an amazing experience, and one that has become my relationship with Ria, one that's become unbelievably inspiring, and educational, and we get to laugh once in a while. So it's been unbelievable.
The use of modern technology to be able to bring so much good into this world is unbelievable. When we look in the world around us and we see that what we can do and what we can achieve with modern technology, the good and then the opposite of it as well. But if we utilize it to the good, it has no bounds. It has no end. And I think this is a good starting point to be able to, as you want to talk about the applicable, to apply and start with one step at a time. If reach out to somebody that maybe you never spoke to before. Say good morning to somebody that you never met before. You see somebody in the street, in the store. Greet them. Say hello. Maybe there's something you can be of help to them. It can go by leaps and bounds that you can help and make this world a better place. Ria, I'm sure the fact that you've never imagined in your wildest dreams that you would have a conversation not only once with a rabbi, but more, and ask questions. And I don't think that was ever on your bucket list.
Amazing. It's
was it?
Talk about the Dean Blechman show. My number one, interact with a culture different from your own. It's unbelievable that the Dean Blechman show, Ria Bo in the UK, remotely brought in here, and not once, but it's been at least on 3 occasions. Rabbi Mendy, this has been unbelievable that we, with what we're talking about, how to make the world a better place, that we're doing it right here. Rhea, going back over to you, that's pretty amazing what Rabbi said using that analogy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a sit and listen back and digest thing, really, isn't it? In terms of the show type, if you like. The rabbi's clearly a seasoned speaker, and you've got to get your biggest ears on and listen, because there's so many sort of breakdowns in the way it's articulated. So as I said, it is more of a listening thing than a debate kind of affair. So, and I think that's somewhere you're familiar with, isn't it, Rabbi?
Anytime somebody has a question, we always try to be able to do our best to answer. So therefore, instead of let me listen to you, why don't you give us another springboard of where you find that we can, in the same topic, in making this world a better place. Springboard with another question.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So here we go. So having listened to your take on it, I think is great. I think everybody's is relevant. Is where I found myself. I was looking at the mechanics of thinking. That's where I found myself. When I went to write out the first three, it basically went root out corruption, root out corruption, root out corruption. And I come up with a few mechanics of how to fix that. But I thought, that's not really much good to anybody at all. So in the world we live in, and what I'm seeing around the world is I'm seeing the growing fear and hatred. And I found myself in a position where if I had to go for three, it would be a case of trying to make a difference to people that are experiencing that. And I feel there's a lot of people being played by other people. So my number one was, all of mine are to recognize. So kind of similar to yours. My number one was recognize when you're being played, particularly if there's a pot of money at the other end of it. So as I spoke to on other shows, recognize when someone is pushing your buttons, and recognize when you're dealing with a positive fear and when you're dealing with a negative fear. So that would be the one. When you hear something and your instant reaction, it's like a Newtonian thing, an action-reaction thing. So you hear something, you go, shut up. So before you go into that mode of just reacting, ask yourself, is this real? Is this a positive fear or a negative fear? So in the mechanics of thinking, it might be possible that could help. For example, a positive fear is if you put your hand too close to that fire, you are going to get burnt. So that is a healthy, positive fear. But I see a lot of fear around that isn't a positive fear. So when you go to automatically react, whoever that may be, just, if you can, if it's possible, stop that right there and say, is this real? Is this a positive fear? Is this going to bring anything positive, or is it a downward slope? Right, so there's a question for you guys. Do you think it's possible to apply something like that before the reaction occurs and you're full of fear and maybe leading to hatred? Back to you, Dean.
Wow, Rhea, that was great, powerful. I'm going to, on that note, it was so powerful that I'm going to now throw it back to Rabbi Mendy to answer.
One of the problems about fear and why people play on fear is because fear is totally an emotion. It freezes our intellect. It doesn't allow us to think properly. And to be able to tell a person, you can tell a child, when you don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. You can tell a child as much as you want, but if the child says, I'm afraid of heights, there's nothing that you can do about it until they overcome it, until you cuddle them, until you give them some type of, either you distract them about the heights or you give them something positive to look at. So if you take that example and apply it to any type of fear, unless you're going to direct it with a positive action, you cannot take away a fear, a negative that's there.
Wow.
And because of that reason, I find, and yes, if you go back to what you started off with saying, that if you look at all the problems in the world, corruption and evil and prejudice and everything else, there are so many evils that we can harp on the problems that exist. But guess what? How do we get rid of it? And my theory is that you don't fight darkness. You light you light up the room.
Wow.
You bring in light. And when you bring in light, a little bit of light dispels much darkness. When you bring in light, all that evil, all those fears. So let's take a little example, just a metaphor. When you have a child that's afraid of heights, or any person that's afraid of heights, what's the first thing you're going to do? What are you going to tell them? Oh, don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Is that going to help them? Not at all. When they're up there on the skyscraper, tell them, wow, look at the beautiful sky. Look how beautiful it is. When you're afraid of heights, if you show them how far they are from the heaven or how close they are to the heaven instead of how far they are from the earth, you can help them overcome that fear. So going back to your question, the same idea is at the afraid of fire or afraid of whatever they may be. When we can help people, instead of showing them their fear, giving them comfort, giving them love, that will take away the fear. So when
are you saying that to apply a point of resistance when you've heard something maybe on the news and you've gone into that reactive state doesn't carry any value?
The value of things that are being put on the news are there to portray, to put people into fear. Most people win over other people's hearts by playing by their emotions, not by their intellect.
Wow.
Take any example. Why don't you shoot an example of today's current event? You don't need...
Go ahead. Give an example.
Well, it's not it's the mechanics of the thinking. I'm looking to see... I put the question out there. Is it worth putting a point of resistance on when you go into a zone and something's happened? For example, you guys are surrounded by blame the Russians. You know, you hear it all the time. It just washes over you. But is it actually, I wish I hadn't hit the Russians, but another situation that kind of brings a state of fear and begins that process? Okay, so let's take, I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead. I was thinking that you could apply a point of resistance and question, is this a money pot playing you? Or is this a genuine, direct situation that does place you in fear like the fire? And I felt there was some value in just going, hold it a minute, and questioning what you're hearing. So the problem with questioning what you're hearing instead of redirecting your focus is that you engage it. So let's take, for example, the Russians, without going into the politics, if it's true, if it's not true, if it's worthwhile or not. We're not in the Cold War right now, and there's no reason to be so afraid of it, whatever it may be. That's a separate discussion. What's the purpose of why they're saying be afraid of the Russians? Because the Russians are considered a monster today. He decides what he wants, when he wants, and so on. So therefore, when I put in that fear and say, hey, look, he's dealing with the Russians, you never know if they can shoot a missile at America at any time. So we've now instilled fear in you. What would be the way to overcome that fear? How would you overcome it? We say, well, the Russians aren't really bad guys. That's not true. They are bad guys. Look how many people he killed. What would you say? It's not really the Russians, it's somebody else, but I have evidence. They were talking to them. So what would be the method to be able to help somebody overcome that fear? The method would be arm yourself. Be strong. You're afraid of the Russians? Okay, I get it. Russians are strong. But you know what? You can also be strong. You can also be a person to stand up. You don't have to be aggressive, but you can be a person. If you are strong enough and you're a play tough guy, nobody's going to start up with you. You don't have to be wild. You don't have to be aggressive. I don't have to dispel if they're right or wrong. So I don't have to I don't have to engage in the petty silliness of the fear if I build up myself into being strong. Give you a little example. If you have a child, and any person, if I tell you don't look at position A, what is your first reaction? To look there. Because it automatically instinct, I set fear in you, don't look at there. But if I tell you, you will be successful in position A, you have no problem not looking anywhere else because you don't need it to be anywhere else. If you're strong on your own, I don't have to worry about what's going to happen. So from my perspective, combating fears, combating evil, combating corruption is by being strong on our own. Is evil going to exist? Is corruption going to exist? 100%.
Are we going to rid this world of all corruption and all evil? Maybe in some blissful time we hope for an era of peace and tranquility. But you know how it's going to happen? When each one of us is not corrupt, not evil, and focus on being better people.
Wow, very powerful. Rhea, back over to you.
Yeah, I'm just listening to it thinking, so in a sentence, Rabbi, to help people deal with this news that they're hearing, and if people could apply what you're saying, I think the world would be a less fearful place, as it were. So in brief, I've put a point of resistance on to question what you're hearing so you don't just fill with fear. And your option is what exactly?
Brace yourself. Make yourself a stronger person that you're not susceptible to fear.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I think one of the reasons why fear plays on people's minds, I mean, look at any election. Look at whether you take Brexit or you take Donald Trump or you take Obama. At any election, what is the ongoing theme? You were mistreated. Everything, you're going to fall down. America's going to go down the tubes. Britain's going to go down the tubes. Whatever it may be, if we don't fix it. It's played on fear. Fear is an easy emotion to capitalize on people, and that's why it's used. But the average person who is a person who takes a moment and says, 1 second, let me analyze the points. Let me think about this. If I don't have, if I'm not worried about my future, do I care about what Brexit or Obama or Trump? And look, after the 8 years of Obama or after the 4 years or the 3 months, whatever, of Trump, will it really impact my life? Will it really change? I break it down to the nuts and bolts of it. Yes, there's nice slogans and fear-mongering that goes on. Because fear-mongering works around, because it plays on emotions. It doesn't allow people to be intellectually honest with themselves. We have to be intellectually honest with ourselves. Is it true or not? Now, the only way it can be true is every person's truth is different. What's true for me may not be true for you. If a person's getting federal subsidies, something may be true by one administration, but not true for them. One fear may be true or not true or less true, whatever it may be. But fear-mongering works, and that's why people use it, because it plays on people's emotions. And I think if we give people the ability to be strong, and that's why if to a certain extent politicians want people to be dependent on government, is because then they can play with the fear-mongering, because they don't give them the self-efficiency. It doesn't give them the ability to be independent. For that reason, you can see that people that are very wealthy, for extremely wealthy, it doesn't make a difference to them who the politician is. They pay them both. They buy them off both. Because for them, they don't have the fear to a certain extent. Because they have the ability to buy off either of them. The concept of fear-mongering works when you make people dependent on you. When people are independent, there's no fear.
Wow. Very moving. Rhea, we're coming up on the hour. Anything else that you have to say?
No, I'm going to round off on the one because whilst I hear what the rabbi is saying, and I think it definitely has a value, I think what I brought to the equation as well has a value. I think to question what you're hearing is part of being strong and not being played. So I see some value in that, and I've heard nothing any difference to question the way I would go about, because I'm not a fearful person. I do question it. But we are up on time, Dean, so I think it's probably time to wrap it up, and I would leave it with people on spread the love, people, we need it right now. Back to you, Dean.
Thank you, Rhea. Appreciate it. And as always, thank you for your participation in a great show. And hopefully, as we always try to do, really bring a perspective that all our listeners, not just in Europe, but all over the world, hopefully get a different perspective from what they're hearing here in the Long Island, New York studio. So thank you as always, Rhea. You're great.
Are you welcome, guys? Anytime.
Rabbi Mendy Goldberg here in the studio. I want to thank you very much. The rabbi, once again, Chabad on the east end of Long Island in Coram, New York. Rabbi, do you have any closing comments you'd like to say?
Just in closing thought, as we mentioned, this is a topic is about making this world a better place. I think it's important that all of us realize that every single deed that we do, there's nothing too small that can change this world. Maimonides, a great thinker and philosopher, once wrote, "One must always visualize the world as it's on a balanced scale. Every good deed will tip the scale to the best." Remember, your one good deed, your one positive action, your one helpful thought, your one helpful hand, helping your neighbor, helping your friend, helping your family, or even a stranger you never met, will make this world a better place.
Well, in closing, to both of you, Ria, and to Rabbi Mendy, what a powerful show. And to all our listeners, I hope there's a lot of people around the world listening, because this was an awesome show, and I loved both of you guys. It was great.
Thank you.
So, I just want to mention to our listeners, please, as always, like us on Facebook. This show, as well as all past shows, always could be found on the Dean Blechman Show YouTube channel, as well as on iTunes as well. Please, I like to hear from everybody. If anyone has any ideas or experiences, if anyone would like to partake and be a guest on the Dean Blechman Show, please email me directly at dean@deanblechman.com. Love to hear from all of you. To all of our listeners here, thanks for being with us. And from all of us at the Dean Blechman Show, please have a great day.
You've been listening to The Dean Blechman Show, live from Long Island, New York. From all of us here, we'd like to thank you for tuning in. We look forward to hearing your comments via Facebook, Twitter, Skype, and email. And don't forget, you can visit the webpage anytime for the up-and-coming guest list. From all of us here, have a good evening.